Welcome to the SmartKeys podcast. We are diving deep today into, well, one of the most pressing strategic challenges facing just about every modern business, automation. But we're not looking at AI as some looming threat.
No, not at all.
We're treating it as the catalyst for, I think, the biggest strategic opportunity in decades redefining employee roles. This is all about navigating that seismic shift and making sure you are the one guiding the change.
It truly is a non-negotiable strategic moment. You face a clear choice right now. You either guide how work changes inside your organization, with a systematic plan, or you wait.
And let the market dictate terms to you.
Exactly. You let external pressures force changes.
Yeah.
So our mission today is really to give you the shortcut to understanding the automation redeployment program. It's a clear, measurable plan for moving employees from those repetitive, lower value tasks into roles that deliver significantly more value.
And the scale of this movement makes it pretty much impossible to ignore. We are not talking about, 5% efficiency gains here.
Oh, it's far, far beyond that. The data is just so clear on the urgency. You've got 82% of leaders expecting digital labor to grow in the next 12 to 18 months. That shift is immediate.
Wow.
And based on Accenture research, we know that a massive 44% of all U.S. work hours are currently in scope for this kind of change.
44%. That's nearly half.
It's nearly half of the entire routine labor pool that's about to be, unlocked. So redeployment is really the only rational strategy to protect value, lower error rates, and just build more resilient operations.
Okay, so the core strategy is shifting talent from that routine execution manual processing, data handling to analysis, customer strategy, and innovation. But if the need is so urgent, why isn't every company doing this perfectly right now? What are the biggest headwinds?
The biggest internal barrier is usually, it's managerial inertia and just the fear of losing high-potential staff. But the primary strategic advantage of redeployment completely overcomes that. Retention. And the preservation of all that institutional knowledge. Automation frees up time, yes, but if you don't offer a visible, structured path for your best people, they will walk away, and they'll take years of valuable knowledge with them.
And that loss is so costly. Not just in the dollars spent on recruitment, but the time to replacement, the disruption it causes. We often just forget the real financial cost of losing a tenured employee.
Exactly. Internal movement isn't just an HR perk anymore. It's a strategic necessity for keeping the people you've already invested in. And the market signals back this up. You have 77% of employers already planning upskilling programs.
Right.
But what's really compelling is the employee side of it. Yeah. 90% of workers say they'd move internally if they were simply shown a career path.
That's an incredible statistic. It's about showing them the what's next.
It is. So redeployment protects that knowledge base, and it just speeds up the entire organizational adaptation process.
It sounds like the goal is to unlock hours that were basically trapped in low-value execution. And once those tasks disappear, employees gain capacity, which has to be immediately pointed towards strategic thinking.
Precisely. You move people from simple execution into roles where they can test hypotheses, solve complex customer problems, and design better services. That shift is the fundamental difference between a resilient company and one that is just structurally slow.
And you brought up client expectations, which I find fascinating. This isn't just an internal budget exercise anymore, is it?
No, not at all. Customers are increasingly driving this mandate. Clients now explicitly expect their vendors to use technology to cut down on errors and shift labor toward what they call higher cognition tasks.
So if you're not doing it, you're already behind.
You're losing your competitive advantage immediately. Teams that show they're focused on solving strategic, forward-looking problems, they earn a clear advantage in the marketplace.
Okay, this is where it gets really interesting for me. The practical guide on how to actually run a measurable, repeatable redeployment program. It's one thing to say we need to shift talent. It's another to operationalize it without, chaos.
Yes.
The source material outlines a mandatory 5-step program structure. Let's start with the foundation.
The foundation starts with granularity and precision. It's about moving away from these vague job descriptions and into tangible work components. Step one is probably the most intensive part of the process. You have to map work at the task level.
What does task level mapping actually entail? In practice.
It means you translate each role, every single job, into discrete, actionable tasks. And for each of those tasks, you log 3 critical components: the skills required, the time spent, and critically, the error risk associated with that task.
That level of detail lets you see exactly what's right for automation versus what needs real human judgment.
That's it. This map is the single source of truth that powers the rest of the program. Without this granular map, all the subsequent steps are just guesswork.
Okay, so assuming we have that task map, which sounds like a huge lift in itself, how do we use it to find the best internal landing spots for people?
That leads you directly into step 2. Identify adjacent roles and opportunities. Using that task map, you look for overlapping capabilities. You're not looking for someone to jump from, say, accounting to AI engineering overnight.
Right, that's unrealistic.
Totally. You're looking for the quickest, most efficient internal move that leverages the skills they already have.
Can you give us a concrete example? So if automation takes over, let's say, simple data entry in finance, what's a new high cognition role for that person?
A great example. So, say a finance associate spent 50% of their time on data tasks that are now automated, but the other half was spent on exception reports, interacting with stakeholders on non-standard payments.
Tricky stuff.
The tricky stuff, exactly. Their adjacent role might be elevated to a financial process analyst. They use their deep understanding of the transaction flow, that institutional knowledge, not for routine entry, but for complex error resolution, or maybe designing new automated audit controls.
So it shortens their time to productivity because they already know the ecosystem.
Dramatically. And it reduces the need for expensive external hiring.
Which makes the internal mobility argument so much more compelling. So once we have that adjacent role, step 3 has to be about closing that skill gap, and fast.
Exactly. Step 3 is to design rapid upskilling pathways. And since the goal is speed and retention, training must be extremely outcome-focused. We're talking about microlearning, hands-on labs, specific mentorships that close gaps fast while people stay in meaningful work.
But how do we guarantee competency with rapid training? There's always that risk of rushing someone into a role they're not ready for.
That's why you have to change the measurement model. Crucially, you measure progress not by hours spent watching videos, but by tasks completed and real outcomes achieved in the new role.
So it's about demonstrated capability, not just a certificate.
Precisely. A certification that doesn't immediately translate to a better customer outcome is, frankly, wasted time.
And finally, making the whole program visible and accountable to everyone.
That's step 4. Communicate the path and set governance. Transparency is absolutely essential here. You have to publish timelines, define the available roles, and set clear goals so every employee sees what's possible for them.
And you set up a steering team.
You must. A cross-functional steering team, so HR, operations, IT, business leaders, to define decision rights and ensure regular, measurable progress reviews. This is what makes it repeatable, not just a one-off project.
The sheer complexity of all that, mapping thousands of tasks, matching skills, managing training pipelines, it sounds incredibly difficult to scale without some kind of specialized support. This is where the tech comes in, right?
Absolutely. The complexity of the program necessitates technology. You really need AI-powered workforce intelligence and simulation tools. These tools create a unified, dynamic view of all your roles, skills, and tasks in real time.
So it's not a static spreadsheet, it's a living map.
It's a living map that lets leaders run these sophisticated talent scenarios in minutes and surface the best fit internal matches almost instantly.
So instead of a manager just guessing which 3 people might fit a new role, the system uses that detailed task data to model the organizational impact of a move before an offer is even made.
Precisely. You are running simulations. And the source material has this fantastic analogy here. It suggests organizations should borrow from robotics, test, simulate, and iterate.
I love that idea, simulating moves, like simulating collisions on a factory floor before you turn on the robot arm. But what's an organizational collision in this context?
A collision is any unplanned, disruptive operational outcome. So, for example, you move an employee to an adjacent role, only to discover they were the only person who knew how to handle a highly specific system that isn't automated yet.
Ouch. That's a huge problem.
It's a mission-critical skills deficit. A collision could also be placing someone who's unqualified, or exceeding the training capacity of the team they're moving to, or creating massive burnout in the team they left behind.
So the simulation capability lets you sandbox these organizational moves. You can test things in a virtual environment before you commit resources or disrupt anything. That must dramatically reduce operational risk.
It does. It moves change management from sort of intuition to data science, and it's how you safely de-risk this kind of fundamental transformation.
And for this to actually work in a big company, these tools can't be standalone platforms, right? They have to plug into existing systems.
They cannot be silos. They have to integrate seamlessly with your core HR systems, like a Workday or SAP. That integration lets you track applications, manage placements, and confirm compliance without creating a bureaucratic nightmare.
All right, let's pivot to the payoff. How do we measure success and prove that this substantial investment in time, training, technology is worthwhile to the executive committee?
The financial model is built on one core principle. The goal is explicitly shifting time, not headcount. That's the language that preserves institutional knowledge and gets you internal buy-in.
So you're reallocating employee hours from low-value tasks to high-value work.
Right, to things like product improvement, complex customer retention, or even finding new revenue streams.
But if we shift time, how do you guarantee that those freed up hours don't just become, slack time? How do you make sure they're genuinely directed toward those high-impact projects? That's the skeptical executive's question.
And it's a fair one. It requires rigorous governance, going back to step 4. The high-value projects have to be clearly defined before the automation is fully deployed. You track success by linking the amount of time freed up, say 2,000 hours a quarter, directly to the measurable progress of that new strategic project.
So you're maintaining budget stability while dramatically improving the quality of the service.
Exactly.
To prove this value, what are the key performance indicators, the KPIs, that leaders absolutely have to track?
There are 4 essential categories. You have your internal efficiency metrics, time to fill for internal roles, and the internal mobility rate. Then your people metrics, employee engagement scores. And then, most importantly, customer impact metrics like reduced error rates or faster response times.
And how do we put that all together to show a concrete return on investment?
You link faster internal hiring directly to lower external hiring costs. Then you connect higher engagement and mobility to better retention rates, which cuts turnover costs. When you combine those tangible savings with the improvement in service quality, well, the ROI becomes undeniable. It justifies the investment.
And just like with the robotics analogy, you de-risk the whole thing by starting small.
Critically, you start with phased pilots in one specific unit first. Use those collision avoidance checks and clear process controls. You test small, you learn fast, and then you scale safely.
This deep dive really grounds the future of work, not in some abstract fear of AI, but in a very practical, step-by-step method that's all rooted in data. Redeployment really is the path to keeping your company resilient and your employees engaged.
Absolutely. The takeaway frame is clear. Map work at the task level. Spot adjacent roles with data, run short, outcome-based upskilling waves, and communicate constantly. A well-run program makes people central to shaping the future rather than victims of it. You have to invest in the tools and the simulation tech to test those moves using hard data.
Since the focus of this whole exercise is moving people to higher cognition tasks like customer strategy and innovation, we want to leave you with one final thought to explore on your own. If 44% of your current work hours are ripe for automation, have you already identified the 3 highest cognition, high-impact projects your newly freed talent could tackle starting next quarter? That's what defines the scope of your first successful wave and ensures you turn time saved into value created.